All right, hello everyone. I'm just going to quickly promote an attendee. Perfect. Ivana, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
And I'll turn things over to you, Phil.
All right, thanks, Ben. Good evening and welcome to the Somerville Redevelopment Authority meeting of May 18th, 2024. My name is Phil Ercolini. I'm chair of the Somerville Redevelopment Authority. I call this meeting to order at 5:35 p.m. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this public meeting of the SRA is being conducted via remote participation. The session will be recorded and will be a public record. I will now ask the board members to confirm they are in attendance in an alphabetical order. Awana Boni.
Here.
Ben Ewan Campen is not with us this evening. William Gage.
Here.
Patrick McCormick.
Here.
Christine Stone is also not with us this evening, and myself, Phil Ercolini. We do have a quorum. So I'll now ask city staff to present a few of the house rules about using the technology. Ben?
Hi everyone, my name is Ben Demers. I'm an economic development planner with the city of Somerville, and I serve as staff to the Somerville Redevelopment Authority, or to the SRA. Just covering some housekeeping. So when an agenda item is being presented, any presentation materials that staff have received ahead of time will be displayed on the screen. If staff or other participants wish to direct the board's attention to a specific page, they should verbally note what page should show on the screen, and they should then verbally explain to the board what is being shown. Please also note that this meeting is being conducted remotely using Zoom webinar. In order to comply with open meeting law under state guidance, which does not allow for what is called side conversation, the chat function amongst attendees has been disabled. If you as an attendee have a question or would like to make a comment on the matters that are discussed tonight, please use the raise hand function to indicate that you would like to speak. I will unmute participants one by one and give you 2 minutes to speak. When it is your turn, please clearly state your name and address before saying anything else. And then after 2 minutes, your microphone will be muted. Please remember that any questions asked by attendees this evening will also be a part of the open record. And then I'm going to also read one other piece. So I just want to remind all board members that all votes must be roll call votes with a motion and a second. And we'll go back to you, Phil.
Thank you, Ben. So the first item on the agenda is item number 1, which is approval of the April 9th general meeting minutes. Have all members had an opportunity to review the minutes? And if so, I'll entertain any motions or amendments or errata notification. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Awana Boni makes a motion to approve. Is there a second? Bill Gage seconds, and we'll do a roll call vote. Awana Boni.
Yes.
Ben Ewan Campen is not with us this evening. William Gage.
Yes.
Patrick McCormick.
Yes.
Christine Stone is not with us this evening, and myself, Phil Ercolini, have voted to approve the April 9th general meeting minutes. Item number 2, agenda item number 2 is a public comment period. And Ben, are there any members of the public who'd like to address the SRA at this point?
Yeah, so we have 5 members of the public in attendance this evening. I don't see any hands yet, but we can give a moment if anybody wants to make comment up front. All right, I see one hand. Let me unmute.
Hi, can you just, sorry, you did say I have to say my name. My name is Geraldine, and where I live in Somerville, 7 Memorial Road. And my question first is, what are we allowed to give public comment on? Was this for the minutes that you were just mentioning? Or do I have to wait till later in the agenda to speak on anything else?
Actually, Jarellis, what I've done is I'm not a stickler. I'm not necessarily a stickler. If there are questions, particularly after an important agenda item, for instance, 90 Washington Street or Winter Hill, I will usually, if there are, the public is in attendance, I will usually open it up to public comments or questions at that time. So I'll certainly afford you the opportunity to ask a question when you think it's appropriate.
Okay, then I'll wait till we're at that point in the agenda then.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you for that. Any other, Ben, at this point, any other members of the public?
For you, Mr. Chair, I'm not seeing any other hands.
Okay, seeing none. Then the next agenda item is item number 3, which is 90 Washington Street Demonstration Project Plan. A member of the staff was going to make a presentation on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I will present the results of the 90 Washington Street Civic Advisory Committee's work over the past 4 months in drafting recommended developer selection criteria for an upcoming request for proposals that will be released by the Redevelopment Authority when the time is right to select a development partner with the city and the SRA for redeveloping 90 Washington Street. And the impetus behind preparing these recommended criteria at this time is to prepare these documents that require a fair amount of lead time and public process now while we're pending an outcome from the legal front for the site so that we can prepare and release an RFP when the time is right later on without having to unnecessarily delay production of an RFP instrument. So we're doing our homework in advance so that we can be ready to react with as much speed and flexibility as possible when the time is right to release an RFP for a developer partner for improving the site. So I submitted a memorandum summarizing the process by which we developed these recommended developer selection criteria. Basically, at the beginning of last year, 2023, the Redevelopment Authority in the city created the 90 Washington Street Civic Advisory Committee to formally incorporate citizen feedback and advice and opinion into ongoing planning for the redevelopment of 90 Washington Street. And to advise the Redevelopment Authority on selecting one or more development partners to assist in redeveloping the site in the future. Assisted by the Economic Development Division, the Civic Advisory Committee recommended or they carried out a request for qualifications process, which took up most of last year, and which yielded from a field of about 78 potential development firms, 3 qualified and vetted development firms for consideration in the future developer selection request for proposal that I just referenced. But we're ready to release that in the future. So last December, as you may remember, the SRA looked at the 3 recommended firms put forth by the Civic Advisory Committee, and the Redevelopment Authority approved those 3 firms for our preferred or our development pool for when we release a request for proposals sometime in the future. So after that was complete, we maintained momentum, and in January we started looking at drafting eligibility criteria for this aforementioned future developer selection request for proposals. And after 4 months of collaborative deliberation, with the assistance of city staff, both from economic development and from the planning and zoning divisions of OSPCD, the Civic Advisory Committee developed the recommended selection criteria that you have before you tonight. The committee is happy to have you review these criteria and suggest revisions, or if you deem it acceptable to vote to approve them tonight. It's at the pleasure of the board. So at this point, Mr. Chair, I will proceed to the actual criteria themselves and give a quick overview.
Of course, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the end that you're seeing now. If you could scroll up to the beginning. Thank you. So basically, what this section is it's a part of a request for proposals that tells potential applicants what the city is looking for in proposals to redevelop 90 Washington Street. And this is meant as a guide both to the potential applicants when they're crafting their proposals, but also for the selection committee, which will be made up of the Redevelopment Authority, to guide how they will judge the different proposals that are submitted. So these follow kind of a set structure. We examined about 20 different types of criteria sections, and they all have the basic structure where they start off with a site description, which we have here. And then we borrowed this from the request for qualifications document that is the companion for the RFP that we'll develop. And then we quickly summarized the history of the redevelopment process for the site so far. And starting with the demonstration project plan, and the objectives of eliminating blight, building a public safety complex, and transforming the remaining portions of the site not occupied by the public safety complex into new development that supports the city and its planning goals. So from that standard section, we really launch into what the advisory committee thinks the redevelopment goals should be. And the committee really feels strongly that there should be multiple uses within buildings that are built on the site to ensure the maximum public benefit from redevelopment. So mixed use buildings, particularly with ground floor commercial space with shops, restaurants, markets, food related businesses, personal services, as well as housing up above on upper floors, both market rate and affordable units that offer both home ownership and rental opportunities. There was also a desire to listen to the public feedback we've received from area residents to, if possible, include medical facilities or pharmacies, healthcare providers, small healthcare related businesses in the ground floor commercial space of redevelopment. And also, where possible, to include civic uses, particularly green spaces. And then from there, the Civic Advisory Committee really felt strongly that there should be, excuse me, an element of character recommendations, because in order to blend in with the neighborhood, to the maximum possible extent, while realizing that fiscally or financially, it will new redevelopment will be taller than the existing 1 to 3 story buildings around the site. The committee felt it's strongly advisable to include a quick summary of the redevelopment, the character of redevelopment that developer applicants should be putting forward in their proposals. So they're looking for moderate to large floor plate buildings up to 8 stories in height. These buildings should be set close to the sidewalk to support pedestrian activity and create a sense of place. And so there should be the district is really this is a typo. It should be primarily residential, but there should be a variety of employment opportunities and ground floor uses that again address the needs of residents and abutters in the immediate neighborhood, specifically the shops, the food related businesses, the medical related businesses, pharmacies, and whatnot, personal service businesses. The advisory committee recommends that the following types of land uses should be prioritized in redevelopment: new commercial space, as I said, retail, shopping, food, beverage, personal service businesses, with outdoor dining and seating if possible. This also includes grocery stores, markets, pharmacies, personal service businesses. Also, the advisory committee felt strongly that new housing is highly advisable for the 90 Washington Street site across a range of tenure options, owner occupied rental residences at a variety of price points and rent points. Again, new civic spaces, especially in the ground floor of the redevelopment areas for nonprofit organizations, community groups, social service enterprises. And then finally, where possible, active and passive recreation space and gathering areas, those type of green spaces. And these type of uses should be developed with the following principles in mind. Again, mixed use building formats with the ground floor with commercial space in the upper story with housing, building heights ranging from 4 to 8 stories, with top floor step backs in buildings with 5 or more stories. Preferred sustainable design, new buildings compliant with Somerville's stretch building code, and incorporating geothermal heating and cooling where possible. Minimal site disruption, where new construction preserves as many existing trees, and the so-called raised berm in the middle of the site runs north-south along the site to the greatest extent possible. There was a desire for no surface parking because it's not allowed by municipal zoning so near to a transit station, in the case the East Somerville GLX station. And there was a strong desire to respect the wishes of the residents of the neighboring Cobble Hill apartment complex to preserve access to 84 Washington Street, their parking lot, and the rear of that building, their trash areas and loading zones are accessed by an access road next to the parking lot for 74 Washington Street and 84 Washington Street. So there's a parking lot on the far eastern end of the site that services 74 and 84 Washington Street, those two subsidized apartment buildings, and there's also an access road down to 84 Washington Street, which is to the south of 74 Washington. And the advisory committee recommends that, to the extent possible, the access to those buildings and parking to those buildings be preserved as much as possible. And then because the advisory committee felt strongly that they wanted to see a redevelopment at 90 Washington Street, maintain character and quality of the mixed-use residential zones throughout the city, but with slightly taller height limits. On the advice of the Planning and Zoning Division, the committee incorporated the architectural design preferences currently in the Somerville zoning ordinance for the MR zones. And right now, there are MR3 zones and MR4 zones around the site. So the same architectural design preferences the committee wants to keep in the redeveloped 90 Washington Street. So, you know, there's quite a few of them. You can read them, you know, mainly, you know, creativity in building design, you know, consistent selection of materials, window treatments, etc., and the way the facades are designed. You know, particular attention to the treatment of windows and avoiding of, you know, ribbon windows or monotonous and repetitive storefronts and whatnot. So those are listed as well. And then finally, we have preferred diversity, equity, and inclusion strategies. These mirror the quality, the strategies that were requested in the request for qualifications that was issued last year. So there's a preference for development proposals that utilizes minority and women business enterprises to the greatest extent possible, not just in the development and design teams, but also in workforce development programs, contractor and supplier selection, and in community outreach to underrepresented communities in the city. So that is the recommended RFP selection criteria submitted to the Redevelopment Authority from the Advisory Committee. And I'm happy, Mr. Chair, to take any questions from the authority through you.
Thank you, Ted.
Bill, I've got some questions.
Yes, yes, go ahead, Bill. I'm sure we all do. Go ahead.
Okay. Ted,
Yes.
on page 2, shouldn't all of these things where you say the Somerville Redevelopment Authority desires or the prefers, it should be the CAC? Because we haven't
Well,
done.
right. I take your point, but technically, when this is written into a request for proposals, the Redevelopment Authority is the issuing authority for the RFP. So that's why we worded it in this way.
Right, I understand that, but it still makes it look like the Redevelopment Authority has approved all of this stuff.
Okay, noted.
Okay.
Yep.
And then my other question is on page 3.
Sure.
You're talking about preserve access to 84 Washington Street and existing parking lot, and then the 37 parking spaces between 74 and 84 Washington Street
Right.
should be maintained. And my question to you is, why would we restrict a developer from developing part of the site? It doesn't seem to make any sense, and it's against the zoning code now.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would want to know, how many square feet of land area are we talking about with all of this stuff? How much of the site do we lose, and does the developer lose?
Right. I don't know the parking lot dimension off the top of my head, but I believe it is about a quarter of an acre.
Okay.
Or half of an acre. So it's
Well,
not.
Ted, that's a substantial piece of the property.
Yes.
And you know, I just can't see us just allowing, that continued use of parking. When really we've taken the site should be used for redevelopment. And the site should comply with zoning, and basically it is near a T station. I don't see that, I mean, Corcoran, Jennison, and Mullins, as far as parking goes, they can redesign their parking lot to accommodate their
They
vehicles.
can, yes. And we told the redevelopment, we told the Civic Advisory Committee that they just felt, this is the committee speaking, it's not me speaking, but the committee
Yeah,
speaking,
no, I understand that,
that
but
at least that the wishes of the Cobble Hill residents should be incorporated, but that if we can go back and work on that, and we can, certainly during the RFQ process, we heard that there are opportunities to replace those 37 parking spaces for 74 and 84 Washington Street. They can be put into structured parking elsewhere on the 90 Washington Street site. As you noted, Corcoran Jennison can fit those 37 parking spaces elsewhere in the Cobble Hill garden, Cobble Hill properties.
right. I mean, my feeling is, and I feel really strongly about this, that if, it's a responsibility of the property owner to accommodate their parking for their facility, and that, we shouldn't give up a piece of property, for potential development.
Great. I'm happy to bring that back to the advisory committee, and we can make that known to them.
And then my other question was on the selection committee. Who's on the selection committee? Who appoints?
The selection committee is the redevelopment authority.
Okay. All right, that's good.
Is that it, Bill?
Yep, that's it.
Thank you for that, Bill. Any other questions from members? I have a couple of questions, and I might have missed this in the past. And was Ted, any consideration given to the financial capacity of the three developers that were qualified?
Yes, they had to meet minimal financial criteria laid out in their request for qualifications, and then we assessed beyond their, they all met the minimal criteria. Then we also assessed their general financial criteria and capacity to develop the project.
Okay.
The redevelopment project.
All right. And then is the CAC going to give the SRA an order of preference at some point down the road?
An order of preference for the developers.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe they provided that in December, but I will check. And if we did not, we can certainly provide that to the redevelopment authority.
So it was already provided and considered?
I believe so, yes, in December.
And do we know, Rachel, you might want to answer. I'm not aware of who was preferred in what order. Do you know, Rachel?
No. No, but I just wanted to know that this is not at a decision point stage, right? So the structure of the process that we've developed is that the RFQ was sent out to, as Ted said, like 78 people.
Close to that.
Different teams in the greater Boston area. And the way we'd structured this was, hey, we really want to find committed folks who are going to be committed to this project. This is a complex thing. We're looking for, a window into your world before you submit a proposal so that we can develop really good RFP criteria. And so we asked them not only like, hey, are you looking for that base qualifications, but also for responses to these kind of complex questions. And so what the committee has been doing is grappling with those answers to make suggestions of what the actual RFP should look like. So there's a couple stages still to come. One is that we need to actually write an RFP. What will we actually put out there? This is the recommendations from the Civic Advisory Committee. the redevelopment authority is the ultimate decider of what should be in that document. But also the idea was that our request for qualifications was going to be a gatekeeping step, so that we would get folks to take that step seriously and give us really good answers. So the other layer to that is also for the SRA to give a final yay, nay on, are you comfortable with all three teams who've responded? We haven't gotten, and are you comfortable with them moving forward into that RFP next stage? Right. And so far we've had that sort of first pass look with the redevelopment authority of, yep, these are the three folks. This is what they presented. This is where they're at. And I think there's what's going to come sort of in this next round of things is, all right, let's get to the RFP of what we really want in there. And then let's look back again at that list of those three teams and say, all right, do we feel confident in all three of these teams moving forward into that next step of the process?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you still have several places to take votes before we get to a place of actually launching this thing.
Okay, all right. But downstream, we're anticipating that the CAC is going to give us preferences within the three that have been selected. Is
Well,
that correct?
Mr. Chair, through you to the to the authority, downstream, the advisory committee will recommend an order of the proposals as they come in. So they'll recommend a first choice, a second choice, and a third choice of proposals.
Yes, that's
Strictly-
you
It's
answered.
strictly advisory for the redevelopment authority's decision.
Yes, no, and that's what I wanted to hear.
Right.
Wanted to be confident that that was gonna happen that way.
Right.
If I
Go
could ask a
ahead.
follow-up question
Yes.
to that. So there's two steps here, right? One is right now we have the teams and we have their answers to these proposals. Is it helpful to you all to have sort of that ranking of the teams without actually having their proposals before you? Because the idea is that what we're sort of setting that like first stage at this point of who actually gets to submit a real proposal of what they'd like to do at the site.
And I think and one of the reasons I don't think we're gonna move forward this evening is that Christine had some questions.
Yes.
Ben Ewan Campen is, he's a locally elected official and a member of the SRA. So I'd like to have them present to hear what we heard this evening and then to follow up at the next meeting. And perhaps, we'll be in a better position at that time to
Great.
move forward. If not in June, then perhaps in July. But I want to be careful in terms of how we move forward. Because of I'm a little not skeptical, but we've gone down this road before.
Right.
I have one more question though, is
Sure.
on the architectural preferences. Does this go through a design review committee, Ted, before
When the time comes for the redevelopment developer to draw special permits, then it will go to the UDC, the Urban Design Commission,
Yeah,
which again is advisory to the planning board.
right, okay. So it's advisory to the planning board, but the SRA could also
Correct.
forward its recommendations and let the chips fall where they may as it goes down the
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, all right. Rachel, did you want to add to that? Okay, so we'll Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, another question. I'm kind of surprised that the CAC didn't recommend commercial office space, because that's the problem. If they're recommending a residential use, that's not helping the city out on their tax base as far as trying to increase its commercial tax rate, so that they could keep residential property values within reason. And I'm wondering if there's been any big discussion about that, because it seems like the way this is going is, there'll be a public safety building, but then there would be a residential development with commercial space on the first and second floors. But I'm kind of concerned again because this is so close to the T, and this I would think would be a good opportunity for some kind of commercial business, lab office complex to go in there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the authority member. Those topics were discussed. The advisory committee especially discussed that topic with the respondents to the request for qualifications, and discussed or during the vetting process, there was much discussion about the viability of different types of uses at 90 Washington in the current economic environment. And the three responding, or the three selected development entities that were approved in the RFQ process strongly felt that the site was by far the best suited in the current economy to mixed-use housing with ground floor commercial. They did not feel that the dimensions of the site were optimally suited for really large scale, large plate office or lab buildings. They really thought that, especially in the for the lab buildings, also the tremendous amount of built in the pipeline supply of lab buildings is really depressing demand for new lab space for the next several years. So that was the advice that the advisory committee took on board from the development professionals that they interviewed during the RFQ process, and that advice informed their thinking in developing these recommendations.
Yeah, obviously, Ted, it's easier to finance housing than it is commercial these days. So I think Christine Stone would probably give us some good insight in terms of what's going on. And anyway, Bill, did you want to follow up with that, or?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, when you put out the RFPs, it's just going to be these three
It will go to those three folks, yes.
And that's it. Nobody from outside is going to be able to come into this.
Right.
Okay, just so I understand.
Yep.
I would caution that unless the three don't give the type of proposal that would be suitable, then you'd have to open it up again, correct?
Right.
Okay. There's no obligation to select any proposal from any of these three.
Right.
Approved.
Okay. All right, great. I'm going to, because there's members of the public, I don't know if they're interested in this particular subject, but Ben, is there someone who wants to address the board relative to this topic? Agenda item, I should say.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I don't see any hands yet, but again, if we want to just give a moment.
Sure, yep.
Okay. I do see a hand.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. I just was curious. I am still, I feel like, fully not understanding the project, which I think is fair for someone who hasn't been as immersed in this as you all have. But I guess for the site selection, my first question is, how far was that search expanded to? And how was this piece, I guess, chosen? My second question is, I know it was already mentioned some of the space is gonna possibly be used for mixed housing, commercial space, but how much of that is, if it's not already in there, would be specific to square footage for the police headquarters, the fire department, the housing, like to know if this space is really being utilized for people. Because I know it is a public safety building, but I also want to just keep at the forefront that, people are who matters most when it comes to this building, and like the valuable tree space, garden space, everything that's really important to incorporate in all this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jarrell. Ted, if you could just,
Sure.
I'm sure a lot of that information is available on the website.
Correct.
Rather than to, go through the entire explanation as to the project itself. Jarrell can have the same information that the SRA members have, and I think it'll be easier. And then if she'd like, she can always follow up later with, clarifications, if that's okay.
Uh,
Go ahead, Ted.
Okay, sure. Just the bare outlines. In 2018, the city did a big search for a new site for a new public safety building to replace the current one near Union Square. They determined that 90 Washington Street was the best site. And then later in 2019, the Redevelopment Authority took the property by eminent domain. As I said, the location for the new public safety building with surrounding complementary development. COVID happened, the process slowed down, but the city did work on some preliminary designs for the public safety building. In 2022, we had a lot of outreach with the neighborhood and the city about how to redevelop the site. Last year, we undertook the request for qualifications process to develop that pool of three pre-approved developers to work with, potentially when we release a request for proposals, which we have to do to help select a development partner for when we're ready to develop the site. And in the meantime, the progress on redeveloping the site has been suspended because the former owners are in legal action with the city, and that will hopefully be resolved in the near future so that the site can proceed with redevelopment. And right now, because we don't have proposals in front of us, I can't say exactly what percentage of redevelopment will be for housing, for commercial, and for the public safety building. We do know that the city's public safety committee, or the public safety building committee, which is looking at the design of the new public safety building, right now they estimate they need a new building will be about 75,000 square feet, a new public safety building. That will go on probably about one of the 4 acres at 90 Washington Street.
All right, Ted, thank you for that. Hopefully that answered some of your questions. And as I said, if you can be directed to the website for further information, and certainly you can follow up with any questions or comments to staff or even the SRA itself. So let me see the next, if there are no further questions. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. So we have some other hands.
Okay, go ahead.
So Martin, I'm gonna unmute you.
Could you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, my name is Martin Polignon. I live in Cobble Hill. So thank you everyone for your time. So Mr. Gage, your comments about putting commercial space there for tax revenue, I think, from my perspective, I've worked with a lot of people with housing and stuff like that. There's a great shortage of housing, especially, housing for elderly and housing for disabled people. That's not the place to put commercial property and commercial housing there. I understand the need for tax revenue. There's many other places in the city. We need to focus, with the CAC's putting, housing there. Mixed use housing is fine, but that's not the place to put commercial development there. That's just not the place to do that. So I find that, even a way of being even offensive in a way. So we need in support of my neighbors at Cobble Hill and support of the community in general, we need to think about putting housing, we need to put, retail there, places that were taken out, stores, maybe a pharmacy, maybe retail restaurants, places like that. But we definitely don't need a lab there. We definitely don't need commercial space. We don't need to be thinking about tax revenue. We need to be thinking about people, and we need to thinking about helping people. We need to think about housing. We need to think about housing and what we can do. So that's my comment. But this is definitely not the place to be putting labs and to be thinking about making money. We think about helping people. That's all I need to say. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Martin, for that, your comments. Ben, is there anyone else?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no other hands that are raised currently.
Okay, all right, and thank you for that, by the way. The next item on the agenda is item number 4, which is the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan and an update regarding the recruitment of the Civic Advisory Committee.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I apologize. A hand came up afterwards. Do you want to go back for it, or do you want to?
Yeah,
wait for the
sure,
final
might as
public
well
comment?
while we're on the topic.
Okay, Dana, I'll unmute you.
Hi, yes, sorry. I am listening to this while I'm driving. So it's a little delayed in raising my hand, but my name is Dana Grotenstein. I live near Union Square. And my question was, looking at the summary, I saw that like the public safety building was part of the CAC recommendation, and I was curious whether the presence of a police station in the public safety building was a non-negotiable presented to the CAC, or if the council, like the Community Advisory Committee, specifically is strongly recommending with their other recommendations that there be a police station on site. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Ted, did you want to follow up with that?
Sure. Sorry.
Oh, Catherine?
Mr. Chair, excuse me, we need Ms. Grotenstein's address for the record, please.
Okay.
Hi, yes, 15 Kingman Road. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. All right, Ted, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. When we are working with the Civic Advisory Committee, we are using the format and the layout of the public safety building as currently conceived by the Public Safety Building Committee, which includes fire station on the ground floor, police, fire, and life safety headquarters in the middle, and then the 911 dispatch center at the top. So until the Public Safety Building Committee changes the program for the public safety building, we're working with the program that they are recommending and supporting currently.
All right, Ted, thank you for that. Ben, any other members of the public who want to address us at this point?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do not see any other hands.
Okay, seeing none, then the next item on the agenda is the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, just give me 1 second to pull up a note. Okay, so there's nothing to share for the screen on this. Just wanted to give a quick update to the members of the Redevelopment Authority that the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan Civic Advisory Committee, so another Civic Advisory Committee, is currently recruiting 4 new members. Just to give context as a reminder, the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan Civic Advisory Committee is a group of neighborhood stakeholders who are able to provide consistent community feedback into the process of implementing the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan, which is primarily currently being implemented through the redevelopment of 299 Broadway. The group, so the CAC, lost members during their hiatus while the project was obtaining its approvals from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and then as the development team was purchasing the property. So we're looking to replace those lost members. When full, the Civic Advisory Committee will have up to 14 members. Currently, it only has 3. So just kind of wanted to share that we were doing this recruitment over the month of May. An interest survey has been posted on the Summer Voice page for the Winter Hill Urban Renewal Plan implementation process. And that survey is available in English, Spanish, Portuguese, Haitian Creole, Nepali, and traditional and simplified Chinese. So I believe I shared that with SRA members over email. Staff have also put up posters with QR codes at the project site and nearby, and we've reached out to local organizations. And then just wanted to note also, if SRA members know anyone who might be interested in being a part of the Civic Advisory Committee for Winter Hill, please feel encouraged to share the surveys with them, or you can send me their contact information and I can also follow up with them directly. And if anybody wants assistance completing the assistance form, they can either call 311 or for assistance in languages other than English, they can connect with the Somerville Office of Immigrant Affairs, which they can also actually connect with through 311. So just wanted to give that update. Are there any questions from CS or from SRA members?
Okay, seeing none, Ben, any members of the public who want to comment on this project?
Let me, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not seeing any hands.
Okay, so the next item then on the agenda is item number 5, which is items not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Any members have any items that they'd like to bring before the SRA at this point? Okay, seeing none, the next item on the agenda is item number 6, which is a summer scheduling discussion. I'd like to, I think, put that off until Christine and Ben are here for the next meeting, just so that we can all be on the same page, I guess, for that. And I know we're all anticipating a little break in the action. So if there's no other issues with that, the next item number 7 is the next meeting is Tuesday, June 11th at 2024, and no issues with that. And so the next item on the agenda is a meeting adjournment. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Luana makes a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Patrick McCormick seconds. We'll do a roll call vote. Luana Bonney,
Yes.
Ben Ewan Campen is not with us this evening. William Gage,
Yes.
Patrick McCormick,
Yes.
Christine Stone is not with us this evening. And Phil Ercolini, we have voted to approve to adjourn. So we'll see everybody, hopefully, in good sunny weather in June. Thanks, staff.
Thank you.
Chad.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Rachel.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks,
for
everybody.
your hard work on this. Thank you very much.